So it is time for the Customer Experience Management panel. This panel is sponsored by IBM. And the panel is going to be moderated by Craig Eckett, Partner and Communications, Media and Entertainment Lead at IBM. As the Canadian leader for the IBM Interactive in Canada, he leads the combination of practices and disciplines for all IBM clients in this country, with a team of about 250 people focused on digital reinvention. IBM has helped pull together this morning's panel looking at customer experience management. And so without taking up any more of your time, let me turn things over to Craig.
Thank you, Michael. And good morning, everyone. Good morning. How's everyone today? Great. All right. So thanks for the introduction, Michael. Again, we've got a fantastic panel this morning with esteemed folks here. I won't go through it. You'll be able to see all of the people's backgrounds in the materials. So you can have a look at the background of the panelists. Again, leading customer experience management panel today. So let me go through, before we get started, on some of the guts of the panel, just a couple of things to note. Number one is the format. What we'll do today is we'll go through a quick introduction for each of the people, and they'll get to speak about their customer experience journeys. So that will be about 3 minutes for each. Then we'll dive into the majority of the work will be in the actual panel discussion itself. So we'll go through about 7 or 8 different discussion topics that we'll get into and allow for a little bit of debate. And then hopefully the last minute we'll have 10 minutes for questions from the audience. So please do have some questions ready, because we're hopeful that we'll have some time at the end for questions. So before we get started, just a couple of comments or facts that I'd like to go through with folks to set the stage for it. At IBM, we spend a ton of time with our clients on customer experience management. We also spend a ton of time with consumers globally. So one of the things that we do is we do a survey every couple of years on globally on customer experience, or what customers find trending and what's important with communication service providers. So just a couple facts to get the discussion going here, to outlay the facts. One of the things in 2014, we found net promoter scores in Canada with the CSPs to be actually at -45. So one of the lowest in globally. I think it was the second lowest in the globe. That has increased dramatically in 2016. So you've seen it go from -45 to -15 in our IBM Global Consumer Survey. So massive improvement in customer experience within the CSPs in Canada, but still lots to go. Still need to catch up a little bit to other countries like the United States in the survey based on the results there. So that's the first piece, and hopefully you'll get a flavor from that from our panelists. The second is just, and I think it's obvious to everyone, or everyone will see it, and you'll see it as a theme here, is just the preponderance of video. So just one factoid from our 2016 study in Canada is amongst the 18 to 25, let's say the millennial category, and this is in 2016, so I'm sure it's gotten even more progressive as to 2017 and beyond. 53% of them watch video daily on their laptop, 48, I believe, on their mobile phone, and then 38 on traditional TV. So you see just the movement to video. Stuff like quality of service just becomes more and more important, way more important than it was 2 years ago. 2 years from now, it will become an important factor. So that's something that we'll look to potentially cover during it. So with that, thanks for your time today. We're looking forward to a great session. And with that, I'll pass it on to our first discussion, which is Daniel Boisvert from Cogeco.
Well, thank you very much, Greg. It's a pleasure to be here today with you. For Cogeco and for me, I mean, a great customer experience is one of the key drivers to deliver sustainable growth, especially in major market. At Cogeco, less than a year ago, we launched our new brand expression, which is called Switch on Amazing. And the idea was simple. We were trying to make sure that our customers are doing great things with our services, such as watching a great video with their family, communicating with loved ones, creating, building, and growing businesses. So on one side, making sure that our customer can do fantastic things with our services, and on the other side, we wanted to make sure that customer is first, And we have a team that is there to deliver great customer experiences across multiple journeys. And in order to enable that, we've decided to build that on two main pillars. So the first one was around igniting amazing customer experience. So how do you do that? You start with customer insight, you're looking at the pain points, we're trying to inject some magic in there, and trying to do a few things exceptionally well. The other thing that is important for a company like us is to make sure that our products are adapted to our customers. So we introduce new services, flexible content, we expanded our internet services as well as rethinking the way we are delivering them. And all of that needs to be measured, and I know we may talk about that, but NPS is something important, but as well, you need to look at brand perception benchmark, surveys, a few operational metrics that also make a difference for the customer. So on the first path, we engage on igniting amazing experiences for our customers. And the other way is also, how can we ignite amazing employee experience? Because at the end of the day, people do create experiences. So we do have a great team that is local, very knowledgeable, very engaged in the community. And as our president just mentioned an hour ago, Cogeco is very proud of customer service and the way we've been delivering that, and we do have won several awards in that regard, especially around service quality management. So at the end of the day, we are trying to create this differentiated experience. We recognize it's a long journey, so we've improved, as you mentioned, with the NPS score, but still there's a way to go. We obviously mobilizing the organization around it, and we are steadily improving, the experience one by one. So we know that areas and journey needs improvement, so working on it, and as we improve them, then we go to the next one. So at the end of the day, we want to do, what's best for customer and what's best for Cogeco. So overall, I believe that at the end of the day, customer experience matters a lot, and on a day-to-day basis, we see that from the feedback of our customers.
Thank you, Daniel. And next we'll go with Craig Thornton from TELUS.
Okay, great. Thank you, Craig. First, one observation. There's no crazy socks on this panel. Oh, good choice. Almost every panel, someone's got some, flowers or bunnies or something on their socks, which I know can be distracting for the audience, so I wanted to point that out. So let me preface with the fact that I'm a B2B marketing guy. I'm the Vice President of National Business Wireless, which is all B2B wireless at TELUS. So what you'll hear from me in my opening and also as we get into the panel is more of a B2B lens and just maybe a third-party vantage point to our customer experience journey. There's a reason they call it a journey, because it's a long road. We started ours back in 2008 with simply a stated objective to be a customer's first organization, a stated objective to deliver outstanding customer experiences in everything that we do. And that's an easy thing to say, it's a difficult thing to do. So we had to gain, from the top down, we garnered support across the entire organization, and it wasn't just frontline team members, your classic, classic customer service. It was across the board, so across our product organizations, our client care organizations, even up to finance and HR. So it started with a buy-in. From there, we basically placed a bet that if we were to move to clear and simple pricing, if we were to put 50% of everyone's performance objectives based on customers first across the organization, if we were to empower our frontline team members, that it would pay off. So the question is, I guess, so how have we done? I'm very pleased to say that since about 2013, we've been #1 in customer churn. We have the lowest customer complaints in the industry, and highest customer lifetime value. So some really interesting things there, and then lastly, our team engagement has shot up by 23 points. So you put all that together, and what you get is a virtuous cycle. So to summarize, I would say, it's been a long journey. We're still on that journey, but that virtuous cycle ingrains itself in your culture, and so that's what we really see as our competitive advantage. Since 2008, we've hit milestones, we've reinforced the program, and that's driven the cultural change. And we have a long road ahead, I think, as everybody does on the customer service front. But it's hard work, but it feels natural now.
Thank you, Craig. Next, we'll go to John Hall from Rogers.
Hi, I'm John Hall, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Customer Experience at Rogers. And as such, I'm responsible for the strategy, the design, and overall improvement of the customer experience. And billing operations also falls into my mandate, which is a pretty critical part as far as we see from of the customer experience. And I've been working in this space in various different ways as a consultant, as an operator, and also as an outsourcer for many years. So I've worked a lot on customer experience issues. And at Rogers, we're very committed to improving the customer experience. We have made a lot of progress over the past few years, but as everyone said here, this is a long journey, and there's still a long way to go. But we're definitely committed to it. And we seek to deliver a simple, reliable, transparent customer service, no matter what journey the customer is on in interacting with us. Digital self-serve channels are absolutely critical for us. In fact, we have more interactions on those channels than retail and call center combined now. So absolutely critical that we make those channels a great experience for customers, make them available to customers, make a lot of functionality available in them. The customers prefer the convenience of self-serve to be able to transact or do whatever they need to address and issues they need to get handled completely at their own convenience without having to interrupt their busy lives by making a phone call or having to make a trip to the store. Particularly, we're focusing on providing that service through the mobile handset, whether it be in our app or through the mobile browser, as customers find that to be incredibly convenient. They like choice in the way that they interact, though, so that's why we became the first in the world to work with Facebook Messenger as an interaction channel with customers, and the first in Canada to work with Twitter. Stores and call centers are still important, though, particularly for some of the more complex transactions where customers can get help from very experienced employees who can work through and help them get the right solutions for their specific needs. So it's still important that we invest in people in those interaction channels with better tools, better training, and also coaching, which is a key aspect of what we focus on for those for retail and call center. More and more customers expect their experience to be relevant to them and not a one-size-fits-all experience. So big data and analytics really help us here in order to get key insights as to customer needs and the preferences of different segments, and allow us to actually tailor the customer experience to those segments. And finally, we recognize that the customer experience is not just customer service. And in fact, it's more really about the product experience, which is why customers actually buy our products and come to us. And that's why, for instance, in roaming, we came forward in the industry with a really strong roaming solution for customers, and also a very good data management product for wireless customers that we came out with late last year. So that the experience of using the product is just as important as the experience of interacting us, and probably more important. And that's also why we're very excited to be bringing Comcast X1 television product to the market early in 2018. I think that'll be really exciting and beneficial, and its customers in Canada and the US are already having a great experience with that. So I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, John. And last but not least, Chris Briggs from Equifax.
Thank you so much, and good morning. My name is Chris Briggs. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer from Equifax, perhaps a bit of an odd man out in the conversation, mainly focusing on B2B, but we're probably one of the brands one of the biggest brands in Canada that you know the least about. I would posit that if you look at our revenues over time, about a third of what we create in the marketplace is directly the result of interactions with consumers, in addition to the other 2/3 coming directly from businesses. So we work with all of you, and we likely work with all of the consumers with whom you work with as well, in many ways, both a B2B and a B2C brand. And that comes through in our customer journey. We're a big multinational organization running in about 24 countries with about 10,000 employees. Not big perhaps by a telco standard, but from a services perspective, quite a big breadth. But Canada is very unique in the sense that we have a very strong market and that we have been a key player in that market for the last 100 years. So we started in approximately, well, based on some new developments we actually had in 1915. The organization started here in Canada, based on the back of pulling together some other smaller bureaus in different locations through to today. But our customer journey is relatively new. Quite frankly, that legacy in the past has made us not focus so much on the consumers or on the commercial entities as part of their customer journey. And we've started over the last couple of years to engineer an official customer experience campaign, much like my partners here on the stand have been doing for a number of years. And so it's had its ups and its downs, to be quite frank. We've instituted an NPS score. One of the first things we did was define exactly when our customers were looking to engage with us. So we defined those as 3 different quote-unquote tipping points. The first being when we understand, or when the client or consumer understands what we offer. The second being basically when we're able to deliver a product or service that meets that understanding. And the third, when basically you get smarter, meaning the consumer of the product or the good can then take that to another level. They understand what we're doing, how we're doing it, but they also have a better understanding about how it makes their business or the consumer experience much more effective. We took NPS in 2015 and then again in 2016 and overlaid it across those 3 key tipping points as part of the customer journey. And so far, we've been reasonably successful with a score of about 26 from our consumers and our customers overall, looking to improve that with some fairly aggressive goals over the course of the next few years, and basically operating as a herald for some of our other regions that are looking to implement similar types of customer experience programs. And then last but not least, working directly with some of our clients, big companies and small that are sitting in this room, to help move that needle forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll switch to the panel discussion part of the session. So with that, I'll start with the first question, and I'll start with you, Daniel. And just an open one, is customer experience the ultimate differentiator?
That's an interesting question, Greg. As part of my mandate, I'm responsible for the consumer, the business, and also the new strategic initiative at Cogeco. And I clearly see that the customer experience is a key differentiator. And the idea is that, you know, when customers start with you as their first buy and their second buy, you'd love them to become loyal, and you love them to become promoters. And one thing that we see is that based on the time that customers have been with us, it makes a difference in terms of what they are looking for. The other thing that is interesting as well is people knows that, but customer service also makes a difference. And the service really starts when the experience breaks, and you need to be strong there. And we believe that, you know, by being local, having this human touch, dealing with our customers, having people in our market involved in the community makes a difference. And when I interact with customers, I always see that our customers are telling us, well, being close to us, understanding our need, reacting, adjusting, and also always improving the experience do make a difference. And we do see that also in our KPIs. We are introducing great services like TiVo, which is bring a premium experience, and we're always improving on that. And again, you know, each time that I interact with the customers, they are saying that, well, the experience is nice. If there's a problem, you are there to solve that. So at the end of the day, I do believe that, is it the ultimate? good question. Some companies will decide to differentiate on price, on product. At Cogeco, we think that the customer experience is really, really critical and do make a difference.
I'll open it up to other panelists.
I think it's particularly true if you think, again, of the product experience being a big part of the customer experience, right? So if customers can really enjoy their moments that they want to use the product with, that's a differentiator. So if you can travel with your family or have a great vacation without stress about roaming charges, if you can watch your favorite content on TV or your favorite sports as a family or with your friends and be able to easily access that and have a good quality experience, that can be a differentiator as well. So I think it's true.
And the ability to be able to anticipate perhaps some of the life events that go with that. For example, in our business, understanding when someone is going out and looking at making a large purchase, when they're looking to go get a mobile phone, when they're looking to engage with an organization to be able to procure something and or work through a specific type of product purchase.
Yeah, just to top up. So I disagree that it's the ultimate competitive advantage. I think it's part. But I do agree with everything that the team has said here. I think culture is the competitive advantage. I think ingraining customer experience into your culture drives that competitive advantage. And to pick up on what John was just saying about products, like that's it. That's the good stuff. When it's not just your frontline agents or your frontline teams that are thinking about customer experience, it's your product guys, right? And they're thinking about how does this product delight the end customer. You mentioned a few good ones there, right? How does the reliability play in? How does the pricing play in? All that stuff needs to work together. And so, I'm a firm believer, as is your new CEO, that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And so, but also culture is what takes you the longest to change, but it also, to me, is the greatest sustainable competitive advantage. So I would just take a slightly different angle on your question, Craig.
Other comments? No? Okay, so we'll move on the customer experience theme. We talked about customer experience, whether it's the ultimate or part of the package in terms of the experience. There's a lot of new customers. Some are competitors over the top. Netflix, some are other business models like Uber. They're built on really solid customer experiences, very simple. Question is, how do you compete or how do you build upon or develop a customer experience knowing that there are some different models and different competitive models out there that are challenging these days? And we'll start with John.
Okay, thanks, Craig. It's true. Customers are seeing so many examples of innovations, excellent innovations in customer experience, whether it be Uber, Airbnb, Apple Shoes, Amazon, see it. And as a result, their expectations get set about what's possible for the customer experience, and they look to all their providers to be able to provide something more innovative and taking advantage of the technologies that are out there today. So we all need to learn from these players and try and bring some of that into our own customer experience based on what's really important to customers. I mean, that's one reason we partnered with companies like Facebook to offer Facebook Messenger as an alternative. We've recently introduced a feature for when customers are getting a field technician to come to their house. We call it en route, and customers can actually see when they're on the map when their customers are when their field technician is arriving as they get closer to their appointment time. So somewhat similar to the Uber interface that we all know about. I also mentioned we're making a big investment in customer data analytics. That's a huge part of what Amazon, for instance, takes advantage of. Maybe, for instance, when they're recommending purchases based on what you have been interested in previously or what your social network might be really interested in. So there are a number of things you can pull in and adapt, and we've definitely started to do that. As for over-the-top content providers, our strategy is to include a lot of that leading-edge content into our communications experience. So we've incorporated Spotify, Vice, Netflix, and our own media content, such as sports. So that helps provide our customers with access to that in a very convenient way where they don't have to use multiple multiple sources to be able to access it. We also need to really simplify the whole customer experience, and we are on the journey to do that. You know what the Netflix experience is and how simple that is. There are things that we can emulate there. And then as for television and cord cutters and over-the-top television, to remain competitive, I think we have to provide a completely different television experience and a much better television experience. And that's why we've partnered with Comcast, as I mentioned. And that's exactly what the X1 product does, right? So it provides voice-activated content to all the different things that are available to you rather than having to scroll through an endless guide to find what you're looking for. TV available on all your devices, an intelligent recommendation engine, and then an innovation platform with hundreds and hundreds of engineers that are scaled based on the size of customer base that a Comcast has in the US versus just our own customer base. So we should continually be able to take advantage of that innovation and bring better experience to our customers.
Thank you. Any other comments on this one?
Well, on our side, I must say that we are looking at all these best practices and see how we can integrate that as part of our product portfolio and as part of the overall experience. And we've been fortunate to work closely with our TV partner TiVo to integrate, Netflix and the apps, as well as creating an experience where you can find, in the search and the navigation, the things that you are really looking for. So I think that, this product will continue to evolve, and we know that with all the challenges around TV, it's going to evolve fast over the next 18 months. So we're really looking for it. The other thing that is changing as well is the overall internet experience, because before that we were looking at essentially two ends. On one side we had speed to the wall, and on the other end we had the Wi-Fi experience. And now at the end of the day, from an operator standpoint, it's really end-to-end. It's really the overall experience, and if it breaks anywhere in the chain, then we're having a problem. So the idea is that by broadening and by expanding that and by looking at the entire chain, make a difference. And we're just learning from the best on how to do that, and eventually bring a bunch of new services. And I'm just thinking here about the Internet of Things and smart home and the evolution, which will be critical, which will be at the center of internet content, the overall experience, and the services that we are currently providing. So I feel that over the next coming years, more of these innovative ideas will be integrated in our services.
So I'd like to build on that comment there, and maybe this is a good question for you, Craig, given your heritage in B2B. And you mentioned Internet of Things, product portfolios are getting more and more complex, customers are looking for simpler solutions. How do you balance those two? Obviously, as product portfolios get more and more complex and service offerings get more complex, requirements for customer experience management become more and more difficult. How do you deal with that challenge in your world at TELUS?
Yeah, it's a big challenge, and I want to come back to some of the things that Daniel was saying too, because I think they're really interesting, and maybe take a B2B lens. But just to directly answer your question first, Craig, I would say so let's take smartphones, right? Great example. Like, I've got every app under the sun on here now, as do our customers, and they call us up every day, as I'm sure they call you, John. And ask us, hey, my email isn't working, I can't get this app to load, so on and so forth. And that's becoming a real challenge. And I think it's creating a bit of a fork in the road. So do you go deeper down that rabbit hole, if you will, or do you start to enact some real policies to say, okay, this is the app provider's realm, and then this is the service provider's realm? And it's a very tricky question. So. And I don't have the answer for it. I don't know if my colleagues do here, but it's something that I think we're all struggling with. What I would say though is, number one, on the consumer side, one of the things we've done is try to get it right out of the gate. So if you walk into a TELUS retail store and you purchase a new smartphone, we'll actually help you get it all set up. So we have a Smart Start program. We'll have some of our team members will walk you through the full setup, so you're going to walk out working, right? So right there, that that's preventative maintenance, right? So that's going to basically reduce calls that you're going to get later on. So you're set up right. If I look in the B2B space, and this is where I wanted to come back to Daniel's comments. Let me give you a story first. So my father-in-law, he owns a law firm in Kingston, and he knows nothing about. He knows what Office 365 and Google G Suite are, but you know, if you just dropped it off, and if he was to buy from Microsoft or Google, he wouldn't know the first thing to do with those products. Where I think service providers can come in is they can provide white glove implementation services, they can provide day two managed services, and really be that trusted advisor in the small business space specifically. If you start to move up market, you know, you look at things like AWS, right? So great example. So do we want to be AWS? Yeah, sure, I'd love to have their balance sheet, but we're never going to be AWS, right? You just look at what's happening with some of the US carriers and Rackspace and so on. But we can play with AWS. We can play with Azure, right? I think we, as service providers, have a great opportunity to be part of the solution and not just an adversary, right? And I think, so if I start to fast forward to what do we do in the B2B space, TELUS is a very, very strong dealer channel, right? So as we move that dealer channel into more of an IT VAR channel and start to manage our UC business, our wireless business, our data networking business, moving into the app space, like there's a lot of goodness that sits right there. And to me, that's how you manage it in B2B. It's an and, it's not an or. And I think we're actually very complementary. And I would also suggest that the SaaS players, as big as they are and as deep as their pockets are, I actually think that they need service providers just as much as we need them, right? So I think there is a nice symbiosis there.
Either I'll open up to other comments.
Well, just on the B2B side, I like your comment about the fact that, you know, the business is evolving, and well, our company is really involved with small and medium businesses because we operate outside of the big centers, and we are very close to them. And we have recently launched a program called Amazing Business Partnership, and being closer, very close to the business, we can understand their needs, and we feel that there is something that is very important, is to become the trusted advisor. And when you're there and you provide the right services and you're reliable and you give them flexibility in terms of the offering, but also the opportunity for it to be managed as they don't have the expertise, seems to resonate very well with these customers. And as you grow up, as you mentioned, as you grow up in the chain and you get to larger customer, then multi-product and the complexity increase, and it changes a bit the relationship. But we believe that, you know, by having this partnership and working, you know, I would say from a customer intimacy point of view makes sense, and then you can design and build the right product and services that fits their needs, and you can adjust. So far we've been, you know, seeing good take on this side based on this approach. So.
Very good. Next question, Chris, will be interested in your perspective on this one to start out. You mentioned the success and the rollout of your efforts with NPS scores in Canada. Plus 26 is great. That's a great indicator. But how will you know when you've made a measurable difference? How do you know, aside from the metrics and all that, you are where you want to be on customer experience?
It's a great question, and we struggle with that every single day, just in terms of talking through the details of what it actually takes to be success and defining what success is. So we have two different tracks that we basically run. We look at how our customers view us. So for example, this understand, do, learn, where we're measuring across these different tipping points. We take that and then we combine it with this component of employee culture that you talked about before. So we have a series of employee metrics that we use to basically say, okay, now that we're seeing that we're doing well with our clients, how do our employees feel about that? We get cultural attributes, and measure the shift in cultural attributes, specifically as it relates to things like customer service, accountability to my customers, how do I treat them, and basically how do I feel as an organization that we treat them. So using those two levers, then we look across 3 different panels of groups. We do a general NPS, which is basically everybody. Then we look at a target group of customers that basically reflect who we would want to most positively influence. And then we do some spot surveying and transactional related surveying. So after a specific event, you call into a call center, we send out a bill, something like that. We'll basically do spot checking on specific transactional surveying around yes or no and different, would you recommend us, yes or no? So taking all of those metrics together and all the variations, we put together an overall view of not only how we think our clients are viewing us, but also how our employees are viewing ourselves vis-a-vis what they're providing to the community, both to consumers as well as to commercial entities. Through the combination of the two, then we obviously are measuring some of the big lagging measures like revenue, but we're also looking at other elements in addition to NPS, like consumer sentiment, business sentiment, how are they feeling about what we're providing. We actually run NPS on a quarterly basis to be able to do that, so then we can self-correct over time on a very frequent basis.
Thank you. I'll open it up to the rest of the group. Obviously, NPS, customer sat, near and dear to all your hearts. How do you know when you've truly made a difference in the framework of what you're doing from a measurement perspective?
Well, Chris, when you measure that from a customer point of view and employee point of view, sometimes there might be gap, I presume.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. So
We have found that to be the case.
Okay. So once you see the gap, how do you translate that into actionable items? Because sometimes it could be, well, it could be this way. So employees probably think that you're better. Sometimes customer may think that you're better. So how do you translate that into actionable items to make a true difference and improve your score?
So it's interesting. We have taken so far a very organic point of view, and we have allowed the employees to basically summarize, based on where we are today and where they think we need to be, sort of a priority list of 3 or 4 things that we should focus on as an organization, and then we will execute against those over the course of the next quarter. Okay. So for example, one of the things that came up last time was, believe it or not, people don't like the way we bill. And the invoices are either not timely or not accurate, and they want more regimented processes around how we actually get the invoices out. That came out through this groundswell of effort in working with various employees where they came together and said, hey, we need to think about invoicing as a key element to be able to bridge that gap between where our clients want us to be and the fact that we as employees don't think we're quite there.
Interesting. Cool.
Okay. We also, go ahead.
Thanks, John. I think I would agree 100% with L2R, customer sat. The only other things I would put in there is I think that there's great external metrics too. Like if you're doing a good job on customers first, you should see less customers wanting to leave you, right? So your churn should go down, which drives up your lifetime value. For us, for service providers, complaints to the CRTC are a big one, so you should see a measurable difference in that. And then lastly, back to the culture theme, you should be able to walk around your place of business and you should be able to ask anybody in any function, what does customers first mean? And you should get a pretty good answer, right? And you should ask them how much of their PPO, so PPO is personal performance objectives for us, is customers first, and the answer better be 50% because that's the corporate mandate. And they should be able to tell you exactly how what they do every day drives the customer experience, right? And I think, and again, that's the tough part, and it's quite qualitative. But I would challenge any of you who are looking to transform your organization to walk around and ask employees, ask your team members, and see what answer you get.
We use those programs quite extensively around Net Promoter Score as well and so on, and they're very, very useful and helpful, and they really make a difference. I think a few other things in terms of when we might know, like you've actually made some progress. We encourage our employees to be advocates when they're out in the community or when they're out socially, and 15,000 of our employees have downloaded an app that we provided to them so that they can interact with and take issues that customers might have had trouble addressing through the normal channels. Our employees are actually interacting with a lot of customers in their lives, and we've already started to get feedback around how things are making progress and how things are improving. So employee can be, again, as others have said, one of those things. The other thing is, we've said that we need to view the whole customer experience from end to end and have the product owners, as Craig said, really own the customer experience when they're designing their products, and having all the different areas in the company move away from being silos and working together. And as we see that more and more collaboration across different groups and that customer thinking going end to end, that gives us an indication as well.
Okay. No, thanks, John. One of the things that we weren't going to talk about, but we keep coming back to it, is employees. So we talk about employees, fundamentally in measurement, employees fundamentally in customer experience management, employees all over, and the criticality of it. I'd be interested in your perspectives on how do you acquire, train, retain, what kind of programs or what kind of efforts that are top of mind, critical in designing a customer experience management organization. So I'll open it up to anyone on there, because we keep coming back to employees, and I don't want to leave that topic.
Well, I believe it starts on day one.
Yeah.
It really starts when the employee comes in, and that's why, by having this concept and idea of igniting amazing experience for employees, the day one that they come in and they understand, that customer is first, that's end to end, all the touch points matters, and then you start and you build on that, and that, will have an impact on the way you design your product, the way you serve your customer, and you train the way you serve your customer, and you train your call center agent, but also in other teams that will support decision making, like finance and my colleague in ISIT. So it really has to start from day one, and then you build from there. And as part of this cultural idea is that, if you have strong pillar, the right strategy with, this focus on customers, and then you deliver and you come back again and again, then it happens. And it takes time, and as you mentioned, it's a journey, but we absolutely see the difference, and we see it in one area, like in customer service, but also across the organization. So I think that again, that journey of starting on day one is really key.
One of the things that we've learned from our employee programs that I referenced earlier is it's about a sense of empowerment. So we try to give, in all cases, the employee the ability to be able to make the changes they see that they need to have done, especially as it relates to a consumer that they may be interacting with, or a commercial firm that they may be working with to present a proposal, that the people inside the organization that we hire have the ability to be able to take that charge forward. That means a lot of internal gnashing around what that means to us as an organization, if someone might make a mistake, if there's a risk that gets surfaced that we didn't previously know about. But with that goes the ability to be able to create effective teamwork, accountability for what you're getting done, and at the end of the day, providing our employees with the ability, with the capabilities to be able to execute on that empowerment in an effective manner.
I think taking advantage of employees' ideas about improving the customer experience is really valuable as well. So listening, creating forums to listen to employees, hear what their suggestions are, especially frontline employees that are constantly right there with the customer. And so we have systematic programs that not only do that, but actually follow up on the initiatives that are suggested and report back to the employee that they actually their suggestions have been implemented. So credibility around that listening program is really important.
Yeah, it's spot on, right? So empowerment was the first thing that came to my mind. So if you're familiar with the term tight, loose, tight. So tight on the strategy, loose on how you get it done. and then tight on measurement. You know, we just, and this is more for, or targeted at our frontline team members, let's just trust them, right? And let's measure them appropriately. So one of the first things we did was we removed call handle time as a metric, because if I'm asking you to provide a great customer experience, but I'm saying I'm measuring you on how short or how long your call time is, well, that's a bit incongruent, right? So I'd say, like, first and foremost, there's that piece. Number two is, I said it before, but it has to be across the 4 Ps of your organization, right? So if your frontline team members are the only folks that you're being asked, or that are being asked to drive an excellent customer experience, right? As John mentioned before, the products need to be great. The product experience needs to be great, which makes our frontline team members' job a heck of a lot easier. So I think you sort of, you start there, and then you drive it all the way back through your culture.
Very good, thank you, Craig. I think for the last panel discussion or topic, we'll start again with you, Craig, and we're going to talk about analytics. So we know how pervasive today, and has been for multiple years. How is data and analytics creating opportunities for you to evolve the customer experience, and where do you see that going in the future?
So if you sort of, telcos tend to have been the sum of multiple telcos over a period of time, right? So as a result, what you wind up with is a bit of a Frankenstein of systems, right? And we're all going through that. What I would say, though, is as we've evolved, I've seen great progress across the organization around tools like, or concepts like data lakes. So the real trick for us is now linking the data that we collect across multiple points back into the multiple channels we have, and then ultimately to the experiences. And that's kind of the nirvana state. You know, if a customer through a retail channel, as an example, or a digital channel, or social media makes a comment, I should be able to link that back to their account and be able to then provide the associated outstanding customer experience through any channel. And that's where our focus on data analytics and the investments we're making, we're hoping are really going to pay off.
Just building on that, when you ask customers what's important to them in a customer experience or in a relationship with their provider, oftentimes they will say, I want them to know me and be able to give me an experience that's within context of what they've experienced with me already. And that's what data analytics does provide in a very big way. If you do something in one channel and then go to the other one and they don't recognize you, they don't know what you've done, that's not knowing you. Just as Craig was describing, it's a great opportunity to use data to help the customer feel like we know them, we know their needs, and we can help them get done what they need to get done very efficiently.
So from our perspective, or from my perspective, I know everybody is swimming in data. We have more data than we could possibly figure out what to do with at any given point in time. So I agree that one of the key elements is to know your customer. And in order to do that, you have to link different facets of that customer point of view together. The other thing that we're seeing as well is then the ability to be able to push that back to a customer in a self-service sort of way, where they basically can also understand, where do I sit with regard to you as an organization? Could be as simple as a profile, could be as complex as usage and over time, what I'm actually doing with that, where I'm going, what I'm doing, perhaps in a family, for example, and or we would be looking at that perhaps even at a household level. So taking that information, making it useful, and then enabling a consumer of that data to be able to use it in a very easy way are probably going to be some of the big hurdles that we're going to be working on over the course of the next few years.
Just to build on the water analogy, it feels sometimes that we're talking about data lakes, but they look like data oceans. And the idea, I think, is is to start with use cases. So instead of just looking at, the ton of data that we do have in the telecom business, is what are the use cases that makes the most sense for the customer and the business? So if you believe that, most value could be generated out of base management or preventive network maintenance, so then you can start with these use cases and then figure out what is the data lakes, what's the data that you need in order to pick, the right area where you need improvement and where data and resources will have the most significant impact. So I think that, starting with the use case and then looking at the data that can, improve and maximize your performance and deliver better for the customer and the company is key. Because just trying to, pull all that together and then figure it out is, I think, at least in our industry, it will be challenging. So again, starting with the right use case, make a huge difference.
One of the things in our last panel question I wanted to pick up on during it, you all mentioned just the massive amounts of data, and I know there's a number of companies, IBM is one of them, who's investing billions of dollars in cognitive artificial intelligence. Just interested in a couple of your comments before we get to the Q&A. Do you see that today? Where do you see that going in the future, and just in terms of artificial intelligence or cognitive playing a role in going through massive amounts of information to help the customer experience?
Well, on our side, we do. I think that, the industry started by first looking at it from digital transactions. So that's where the web really started. And now we're more in the mode of digital interaction. So a mix of, interaction between technology, some robots, and people, and eventually evolving that to digital conversation. So I think that on that path, there's a pacing and a timing of that. If I look at our customers, we do have customers that are ready for that and are tech savvy, and they are ready to engage in digital interaction and digital conversation. Other ones truly need this human touch, and it's important for them and it's reassuring. So as we evolve through that cycle, I believe that as an industry we need to balance and be ready to address the customers the way they want to be served. And honestly, the digital and the intelligence, the artificial intelligence will greatly help in making that process smoother, easier, more flexible, available 24/7, without losing this human touch. So I think in our industry we just need to balance that right.
Yeah, I don't think the size of the data needs to sort of restrict us in terms of, is it too much? Is it going to become overwhelming? I think if you do take it on a use case basis, you can be very focused on what you need for those particular use cases and figure out which are the ones that are most important for the customer for us to invest in. I think, as you say though, artificial intelligence, machine learning can be great for providing that always on but high, almost personal interaction, which can be very convenient for customers 24/7, so to speak. We've also used things like machine learning to identify customers in our customer base that should probably be having issues with us, and we've been able to use that to reach out to them proactively to help address their issues, and in fact have even helped them avoid having to make complaints just by using the data and some of the modeling tools that help us really identify specific issues that customers might have. So I think there are lots of applications, and it's only going to become more important that we take advantage of this for the customer experience.
Yeah, and that fully agree, and the omnichannel thing, in fact, what Daniel was saying is key. So your ability to democratize data across all of your channels and ensure that you could start a transaction at a retail store, finish it online, or start one in a digital capacity and finish it in a retail store. Things like that are critical. So there's the linking piece, and then on the AI and machine learning side, we're all doing, I think, similar things on that front. It'd be very interesting to see where it goes. I'm looking forward to it.
And from an Equifax perspective, AI is something we've been working with quite a bit now, just in terms of predictive consumer and commercial behaviors around what they're actually doing from a lending perspective at various points in the life cycle. So whether you're looking to market to somebody, acquire them as a customer, actually have them come on board with a specific product service, or even managing them over the life cycle, and unfortunately in some cases getting to a collection state. But what you're finding is that is sort of this static model where you've taken a model, an approach that is basically just encapsulating a model that then is not reactive over time. What we're seeing is something that is A, more transactional, and B, less static, much more active and interactive on an ongoing basis. So you see the trend moving from these static models to ones that are more trended models. How do we think you're going to perform next? Not necessarily how you've performed over the course of the last 5 years, and then translating that into a next best action. You can optimize that, and then you can create a customer experience on top of that that reflects where you think that consumer is going to go on that journey, where the horizon is going to look like. And that's not very far. We're working with organizations right now to provide that. I'm sure many people in the room are experimenting with those types of models and those types of approaches in the market.
Very good. We do have, I think, about 4 or 5 minutes left in this session, so I'd like to bridge to Q&A. So I think there's some microphones up here. Looks like we've got a gentleman who might ask a question.
Hello. François Caron, TC Pub Media. A question I have is, how can you accurately measure the level of customer satisfaction if you can have customers leave you outright without them telling you why they're leaving? This case is, it's actually happened to me. I switched cell phone providers last Friday night. An operation that only took an hour, and my old provider, all they got was a request to port the number over to a different provider without any of them knowing why I left.
I'll open it up to that group.
Well, not all, I would say not all customers that leave in that manner. And there are other customers that actually might contact us first. There are other customers that take surveys that give us feedback about what their experience has been. So,
but this is a case of a mobile provider. All I had to do was request the new provider to send a request to the old provider to port the number. And the old provider has absolutely no idea why I left.
Right. And they don't know why you left, but other customers have had similar experiences, usually we find, and that we can identify some of the general issues that customers are experiencing, no matter how they leave us, if they do. Sometimes, often when we talk to them, we can convince them or adjust their issues as well.
Can you elaborate how you find out?
If I could top up, I think what I would say is I would encourage, you know, if there are challenges that any of our customers are having, I would encourage them to you know, contact us through any of our channels, and we can certainly help address any issues they're having. You know, I can't speak specifically to the porting mechanisms, which is where I think you were going. I'd be happy to chat with you offline if you'd like, though.
That's quite all right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have time for one more question?
A very quick one.
A very quick one. Is there another question out in the audience? In that case, it makes it easy.
I may have scared them away. I'm sorry. I just want to thank, I guess it's Craig, Chris, Daniel, and John, which would make a great singing group.
It would.
But I want to thank you folks for sharing your perspectives. Want to thank IBM for helping pull together this panel. It's been a really interesting session. Obviously, customer experience is a huge issue. It's one of the great differentiators these days between service providers. I don't think any service provider wakes up in the morning saying, how can I piss off my customers today? And it's a real challenge. How do you improve things? You know, as you talked about the tension in measuring your representatives, you want them to handle the call quickly, but do it in a way that's satisfying the customers. So thank you very much for sharing the perspectives with the Canadian Telecom Summit today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.